are too short for things that I want to share. So I purposely made the slides as self-explanatory as possible. So if I had to stop in the middle of the presentation because of the time constraint, then everyone can read it themselves. All right? Okay, let's start it right now. Ideas through literacy. How to find, weave, and present your idea. Okay. As we know, because of the social media, internet, and blah, 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 ideas are actually the currency of the 21st century. Whenever I talk to my students and they said, I don't know, miss, I don't have any ideas. I told them, you should be worried. You're in trouble because you should have ideas in the 21st century. But I know a lot of people have a lot of good ideas. Is having an idea enough? In my opinion, it's not enough having an idea. You have to be able to find good ideas, weave them into logical strain of thoughts, and then communicate them to people. So the first question is, how to find it? Once upon a time in 1665, that time it was a lockdown in the United Kingdom, just like us. But that time the lockdown was caused by the bubonic disease. So we have corona this year, but that time it was bubonic disease. Isaac Newton had the lockdown and then finally had this eureka moment when he had an idea about gravity. And then it started to have an opinion about, are ideas, good ideas, usually uninvited? Should we just wait for them? Wait, sorry. Okay. The answer is no. Because Newton also said that I can see further because I stand on the shoulder of giants, or nanos gigantum humeris incidentes. That means he actually read a lot of books before these ideas can come to him and found the eureka moment. So actually, no, ideas are not uninvited. We actually have to build our knowledge to be able to find good ideas. Then the next question would be, how? Right? Well, a lot of ways to get ideas, a lot of doors to open, the doors to knowledge, for example. You can talk to experts, you can listen to podcasts, you can read Wikipedia, you can learn in school. But in my opinion, the most efficient way, and you can do it independently, is through reading. A lot of people think that reading is so boring, it's so time consuming. I'm too busy for books. And I used to think that way too. So you're not the only one if you think this way. But something changed my mind, which I will share a little bit later. Right. So this is what I think we should do to be able to foster reading habit. First of all, we need to ask ourselves, why do you want to read? Is it only because you want the knowledge? If it's only because of the knowledge, then you can find a lot of other sources of information. You can watch documentaries, you can watch YouTube videos, or you can just read the summary of a certain book, right? Why would we bother reading the whole book to understand what it means or what they say? But in my opinion, I found my eureka moment when I read a summary of Why Nations Fail. I actually read a lot of summaries of Why Nations Fail, watched a lot of videos about why nations fail. And then I decided to read it myself. You know what's surprising to me? What I thought was actually the best parts of the books were not even in the summary. So a lot of these people summarize this book for us, for our audience, but then what I thought was most important, actually they missed that part. That makes me thinking like I'm going FOMO here, FOMO, fear of missing out. That's why I start from that moment. I strive to finish books that I was interested to read. And also, I do believe that language is actually a tool to make logical connection. So whenever I read something, I enjoy the process of weaving these words into strains of thoughts and try to create an idea and find out what they mean. It's almost like solving puzzles. And if we do this process, there's a better chances for us to remember it rather than reading the summary created by other people, right? Second, what I really recommend here is to join book clubs, because there are so many people join book clubs and probably they have different insights than you. So you can learn a lot from them too. Maybe they can make you think like, I never thought about that before. Or I never looked at it that way. I never look at it that way, for example. So it's really pays off to join book clubs. But you also have to have guts to say no if you don't like their book, which is fine. A lot of people I know feel forced like they have to read a certain books because of the book clubs decided, but actually you have a right to skip book of the month, for example. Why? Because it's related to the next one. You need to choose carefully. We all have limited time, energy, and resources. If you were, I usually buy 3-dimensional books. I cannot read ebooks for some reasons. So we have limited resources. So I usually invest more time upfront to select what books I will read. I will check on Goodreads, the reviews, the ratings. I will check the table of contents. If sometimes the title can be misleading, like this book, The Courage to Be Disliked. This book was totally misleading, right? And then you need to consider the length, for example. With your time constraint, maybe you're in the middle of report card submission. Do you want to read War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, for example? So you really have to consider all of these things. And then remove the barrier. Remove the barrier. The first one is find your best position to read a book. Now, this is my best position. I actually like reading upside down. And this is my husband was taking a photo of me. I like the blood flowing to my head when I read. But find your best position when you read, and then find your best place. Sometimes the bedroom is not the best place because our brain associate our bedroom with sleepy. So find your best spot, but I'm fine with my bedroom. And then try to make your books close by all the time. And then discipline. Now, this is how bookshelves typically look like. There are so many books that we never read. Or the last time you read it in 1998 and you reached chapter 3. Or it was somebody else's book that happened to end up in your bookshelf for some reasons. So try to make a pact with yourself. Do not buy more books until you finish at least one. So we know we go to Big Bad Wolves a lot of times, right? But a lot of people have not even read the books from last year, but they already buy a lot more this year. So we should really avoid this type of habit. We need to promise ourselves, I'm not going to buy any more books if I have not finished at least one. And you also need to, in my opinion, a lot of people choose to read multiple books at one time. I cannot do that because I like to focus my kind of head space in a way, right? So if I had to choose 2 books at one time, I will choose one nonfiction and then one fiction or picture books. And in between, I'll alternate with short readings like Wikipedia, suddenly reading about nuclear fusion at 5 a.m. in the morning with Wikipedia. I'm sure you can relate, right? It's fine. This is when you're just bored with your long books or thick books, you can alternate it with short readings. But in principle, just one nonfiction book and then one fiction. And just like what Bill Gates said, we need to carve out time to read every day, preferably the same hour every day. So if you can only have 15 minutes, I suggest you to read nonfiction instead of I suggest you to read fiction instead of nonfiction. So I have 2 alarms regarding books. I have one alarm to wake me up in the morning. I also have an alarm to tell me to go to sleep. Because what happened was, when I was reading Educated by Tara Westover, I actually read this 200 pages in one sitting. So it was from 10 p.m. until maybe 6 a.m. in the morning. And that was even after reading Why We Sleep, the importance of sleeping. So it seems so inconsistent, but sometimes it happens. So I need to set an alarm. It's time to go to sleep, time to wake up, because sometimes you get carried away. And if you find the language is too difficult, if you read one chapter and no takeaways after reading one chapter, if you read misleading book, misleading title, and you were not, you couldn't find what you were looking for, it's okay to give it up. And don't feel sorry about it, because there are so many books that are waiting for you to be read. And what if it's so hard? This is something that my students always say. So hard, Miss Pippin. Well, this book will probably help you. Atomic Habits. They have something called the rule of 2. If it's really hard for you, just read 2 pages every day. Or find 2 quotes from this book. And after finding 2 quotes, stop, fine. Or find 2 new words if you're learning English, right? Or if you're a writer, just type 2 sentences. If you plan to start on an athletic life, just run for 2 minutes if you're lazy to do 2 hours jogging, for example. So the rule of 2 is really helpful, particularly when I'm really tired. I usually set the standard lower, like, okay, I will read 2 pages today. At least, I do not skip reading. And then, after we foster a reading habit, we also need to weave them into, in my opinion, good order or good presentations. First of all, I don't believe in speed reading. A lot of people go to speed reading workshop. I see no point in doing this. In science, there's something called synapses. I hope I pronounce it correctly. I don't know. I saw it on Wikipedia. So this firing neuron connections that happen in our brain is called synapses. Actually takes time to form. So if you really want to remember as much as you can from your book, if you really want to understand or internalize the lessons from a certain book, you cannot speed read it. So it's almost a waste of time reading at all if you speed read it, because the chances to remember it, to internalize it is actually much lower. So it's better for you to just take your time, don't rush yourself, and let your brain create those synapses. And then remove the language barrier. For all of us who are still learning English, make this online dictionary available, as close as you can, and have a pencil ready. When you're reading, your pencil is like your wand if you're Harry Potter. You have to have your wand with you, because whenever you have reflections, whenever you disagree, whenever you think this is great quote, whenever you think it reminds you of something that has happened in the past or makes you feel a certain way, you need to write it down, because it's a really precious thoughts. Yeah, it's a really precious, what is it called? Ideas, in my opinion. And sometimes it just comes and go, 3 seconds and then go. That's why you need a pencil or a pen to just record it, right? And if you can, do not give full summary, because I see a lot of readers give full summary of what they read. I actually disagree with this. If you can actually understand the content of this book, for one chapter, for example, you can just summarize it in 1 sentence. If you really understand the content, you can do this in just 1 sentence. You don't have to summarize the whole thing, right? Just like as an evaluator in Toastmasters, for example, you don't have to retell the speech of the person that you have to evaluate, right? Same principle. And also, this final reflection, right? Try to put the quotes that you find interesting from this book, right? And choose the best two and use this best two as an opening of your speech and the second one as the closing of your speech. So this is what I usually do. And sometimes my Toastmaster friends ask me, there's a spot in Magical Bali, do you want to deliver a speech? Sure. 30 minutes before the meeting, for example, I usually do that because I have my reflection for books. And these reflections are actually my material for my speech. So if you do this, you will have a lot of materials ready. And last but not least is you have to practice to present it. And there's no way around it but to do it. So I've been in Toastmasters for 10 years, and there's a reason why I'm sticking around. And I think I will be active in Toastmasters at least for the next 10 years too. Because I personally think that there's nothing more precious than being able to deliver your ideas to other people. So I think that's why I stick around in Toastmasters, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Thank you, Toastmaster DTMP Pete.
Wow, 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 wow.
Toastmaster